persistent Microsoft error message by clicking OK and carrying on. Humanity was caught napping, and we've been scrabbling to catch up, and with agonizing slowness, we are making progress. Epidemiologists at Oxford University identified the first treatment for COVID-19. They did trials with our National Health Service and found that a cheap medicine called dexamethasone reduces the risk of death by over a third for patients on ventilators. The UK immediately shared this discovery with the world, so that as many as 1.4 million lives could be saved in the next 6 months by this one single advance. And as I speak, there are 100 potential vaccines that are trying to clear the hurdles of safety and efficacy, as if in a giant global steeplechase. We don't know which may be successful. We don't know if any of them are going to be successful. The Oxford vaccine is now in stage 3 of clinical trials, and in case of success, AstraZeneca has already begun to manufacture millions of doses in readiness for rapid distribution, and they've reached agreement with the Serum Institute of India to supply 1 billion doses to low and middle income countries. But it'd be futile to treat the quest for a vaccine as a contest for narrow national advantage, and immoral to seek a head start through obtaining research by underhand means. The health of every country depends on the whole world having access to a safe and effective vaccine wherever a breakthrough might occur. And the UK, we will do everything in our power to bring this about. We're already the biggest single donor to the efforts of the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness to find a vaccine, and it is precisely because we know that no one is safe until everyone is safe that I can announce that the UK will contribute up to £571 million to COVAX, a new initiative designed to distribute a COVID vaccine across the world. Of this sum, £500 million will be for developing countries to protect themselves. And the UK is already the biggest donor to Gavi, the Global Vaccine Alliance. In June, we helped to raise almost $9 billion to immunize another 300 million children against killer diseases. Gavi also stands ready to help distribute a COVID vaccine. But even as we strive for a vaccine, we must never cut corners, slim down the trials, sacrifice safety to speed, because it would be an absolute tragedy if in our eagerness we were to boost the nut jobs, the anti-vaxxers, dangerous obsessives who campaign against the whole concept of vaccination and would risk further millions of lives. And now is the time, above all, to look ahead and think now about how to stop a pandemic from happening again. How can we stop another virus from coming along and again smashing that precious Ming vase of international cooperation? How can we avoid the mutual quarantines, the brutal balkanization of the world economy? I don't think there's any reason for fatalism. Of course, the dangers can never be wholly eliminated, but human ingenuity and expertise can massively reduce the risk. Imagine how much suffering might have been avoided if we'd already identified the pathogen that became COVID-19 while it was still confined to animals. Suppose we'd been able to reach immediately into a global medicine chest and take out a treatment. What if countries had been ready to join together from the outset to develop and trial a vaccine? And think how much strife would have been prevented if the necessary protocols covering quarantine and data sharing, PPE, so much else, had been, so far as possible, ready on the shelf for humanity to use. So we in the UK, we're going to work with our friends, we're going to use our G7 presidency next year to create a new global approach to health security based on a 5-point plan to protect humanity against another pandemic. Our first aim should be to stop a new disease before it starts. About 60% of pathogens circulating in the human population originated in animals and leapt from one species to the other in zoonotic transmission. The world could seek to minimize the danger by forging a global network of zoonotic research hubs charged with spotting dangerous animal pathogens that may cross the species barrier and infect human beings. The UK is ready to harness its scientific expertise and cooperate to the fullest extent with our global partners to this end. Of the billions of pathogens, the great mass are thankfully incapable of vaulting the species barrier. Once we discover the dangerous ones, our scientists could get to work on identifying their weaknesses, refining antiviral treatments before they strike. We could open the research to every country, and as we learn more, our scientists might begin to assemble an armory of therapies, a global pharmacopoeia ready to make the treatment for the next COVID. Our second step should be to develop the manufacturing capacity for treatments and vaccines, so that the whole of humanity can hold them like missiles in silos, ready to zap the alien organisms before they can attack. But if that fails, and a new disease jumps from animals to human beings, overcomes our armory of therapies and begins to spread, then we need to know what's going on as fast as possible. So the third objective should be to design a global pandemic early warning system based on a vast expansion of our ability to collect and analyze samples and distribute the findings using health data sharing agreements covering every country. And as far as possible, we should aim to predict a pandemic almost as we forecast the weather, to see the thunderstorm in the cloud no bigger than a man's hand. And if all our defenses are breached and we face another crisis, we should at least be able to rely on our fourth step and have all the protocols ready for an emergency response, covering every relevant issue, along with the ability to devise new ones swiftly. Never again must we wage 193 different campaigns against the same enemy. As with all crises, it's crucial not to learn the wrong lessons. After the struggle to equip ourselves with enough ventilators, with countries scrabbling to improvise like the marooned astronauts of Apollo 13, there is a global movement now to onshore manufacturing. That's understandable. Here in the UK, we found ourselves unable to make gloves, aprons, enzymes, which was an extraordinary position for a country that was once the workshop of the world. We need to rediscover that latent gift and instinct, but it would be insane to ignore the insights of Adam Smith and David Ricardo. We need secure supply chains, but we should still rely on the laws of comparative advantage and the invisible hand of the market. Many countries imposed export controls at the outset of the pandemic, about 2/3 of which remain in force. Governments still target their trade barriers on exactly what we most need to combat the virus, with tariffs, get this, on disinfectant often exceeding 10%, for soap tariffs of 30%. So I would urge every country to take a fifth step and lift the export controls wherever possible and agree not to revive them, and cancel any tariffs on the vital tools of our struggle: gloves, protective equipment, thermometers, other COVID critical products. The UK will do this as soon as our new tariff regime comes into effect on the 1st of January, and I hope, our new independent tariff regime, I should say, and I hope that others will do the same. Though the world is still in the throes of this pandemic, all these steps are possible if we have the will. They are the right way forward for the world, and Britain is the right country to give that lead. And we will do so in 2021 as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the founding of this great United Nations in London in January, and through our G7 presidency, and as we host the world's climate change summit, the COP26, in Glasgow next November. The COVID pandemic has been an immense psychic shock to the human race. Global fears have been intensified by the immediacy of round-the-clock news and social media. But we sometimes forget, we face a virus, a small package of nucleic acid that simply replicates. It's not even technically alive. Tragic as its consequences have been, it has been nothing like as destructive as other plagues, let alone the influenza of a century ago. It's absurd in many ways, outrageous, that this microscopic enemy should have routed the unity of the human race. COVID has caused us to cease other vital work, and I'm afraid it made individual nations seem selfish and divided from each other. Every day, literally, people were openly encouraged to study a grisly reverse Olympic league table and somehow to take morbid and totally mistaken comfort in what seemed to be the greater sufferings of others. We can't go on like that. We can't make these mistakes again. And here in the United Kingdom, the birthplace of Edward Jenner, who pioneered the world's first vaccine, we are determined to do everything in our power to work with our friends across the UN to heal those divisions and to heal the world.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister, First Lord of the Treasury, and Minister for the Civil Service of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland for the statement just made. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bangladesh to introduce an address by the head of government.
Mr. President, it's my distinct honor